I want to welcome everyone to the first ever congressional hearing examining a bill to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. I call this hearing to assess the impact of DOMA on American families. I've heard from many Vermont families concerned about this important civil rights issue. And earlier this year, I was proud to join Senator Feinstein and others to introduce S-598, the Respect for Marriage Act, a bill that would repeal DOMA and restore the rights of all lawfully married couples. These American families deserve the same clarity and fairness and security that other families in this great nation enjoy. And as chairman of this committee, I've made civil rights a focal point of our agenda. But also, outside of the hearing room, I've often spoken with those who think the issue of civil rights is merely one for the history books. That's not so. There's still work to be done. The march toward equality must continue until all individuals and all families are both protected and respected equally under our laws. In the 15 years since DOMA was enacted, 5 states, including my home state of Vermont, plus the District of Columbia, provide the protections of marriage to committed same-sex couples. In just a few days, the state of New York will become the 6th state to recognize and protect same-sex marriage. But unfortunately, the protections these states provide to the married couples are overridden by the operation of DOMA. And I'm concerned that DOMA has served to create a tier of second-class families in states like Vermont. And this runs counter to the values upon which America is founded, to the proud tradition we have in this country moving toward a more inclusive society. I believe it's important that we encourage and sanction committed relationships. I also believe that we need to keep our nation moving toward equality in our continuing efforts to form a more perfect union. And I'm proud to say that Vermont's led the nation in this regard. In 2000, Vermont took a crucial step when it became the first state in the nation to allow civil unions for same-sex couples. 9 years later, Vermont went further to help sustain the relationships to fulfill our lives by becoming the first state to adopt same-sex marriage through the legislative process. I've been inspired by the inclusive example set by Vermont. Many other Vermont families have reached out to share their experience, whether small business owners paying more in federal taxes because they're not allowed to file like other married couples do. Young couples are taxed when their employer provides health insurance to their spouse. They're working parents of teenage children navigating student loan forms, or retirees applying for end-of-life care. These are powerful stories. And their stories, all of them will be part of the hearing record. The Respect for Marriage Act would allow all couples who are married under state law to be eligible for the same federal protections afforded to every other lawfully married couple. Nothing in this bill would obligate any person, religious organization, state, or locality to perform a marriage between two persons of the same sex. Those prerogatives would remain. What would change and must change is the federal government's treatment of state-sanctioned marriages. The time has come for the federal government to recognize these married couples deserve the same legal protections afforded to opposite-sex couples.
Thank you, Chairman Leahy, my fellow Vermonter, and thank you, Senator Grassley and the other members of the committee for allowing me to testify here today. I'm the oldest of 7 children, came from a good Catholic family, and I had a great childhood. My mom and dad were completely devoted to us kids, but they're also devoted to each other. They were happily married for 51 years before my dad died 6 years ago. Sorry. So that was my model of a successful marriage. That's what I wanted for myself. When I realized as a young adult that I was gay, I didn't think that I would ever have the opportunity to have that same kind of a life that my parents had. And then I met Karen Hibbard, and I consider myself blessed to have found the person that I wanted to be with for the rest of my life. We've been together for more than 25 years now, and as soon as the state of Vermont, as soon as the Vermont legislature said we could, we got married. We promised to continue to love one another and to be with each other through thick and thin for the rest of our lives. by now our lives are completely intertwined, both financially and otherwise. But we still can't file joint federal tax returns. And that means we have to pay more in taxes. There was a time a few years ago when I was very sick and I was in the hospital for 4 days. Karen stayed with me every day and every night till I got better. Luckily, I had health insurance through Karen's work, so that helped pay the medical bills. But unlike other married co-workers that she works with, Karen has to pay tax on the value of that health insurance coverage for me. That's about $6,200 a year. You know, senators, when we met, Karen had blonde hair and I had black hair, and now we both have gray hair. And as we get older, we're starting to worry about the financial difficulties that we may face because the Social Security laws don't provide us the full benefits of other couples. Now, all of these things, large and small, they add up over time. And it's like waves hitting sand on a beach over and over. They have the effect of eroding our financial security. It's something that, you know, trying to erode things that we've built up, we've worked so hard to build up over time. As Senator Leahy pointed out, I'm a lawyer by profession. I do a lot of family law work and a lot of estate planning work. And in that role, I've seen firsthand the ways in which the lack of federal protections hurt same-sex families and the children they're raising. So I'd just like to give you just 2 examples here today. I once represented a woman named Carrie. She was a blue-collar worker. She worked in a big box store. She and her partner, Aaron, really struggled to support themselves and Aaron's 2 children that Aaron had from a prior marriage. At one point, Carrie went to her employer and tried to get health insurance for Aaron and for Aaron's 2 children, and the company said no. They specifically told her that the federal government did not require them to insure their employees' same-sex partners or spouses or those spouses' children. So they weren't going to do it. So for this family, the lack of health insurance really was very scary for them. They were essentially one illness away from financial ruin. And the last case I'll tell you about is really a tragedy. My client Cheryl and her partner Jane, they were the new parents of an 8-year-old boy. They were totally in love with that little baby. They had so many hopes and dreams together for raising that child. They had agreed that Cheryl was going to stay home and be a full-time stay-at-home mom to take care of the baby, and that Jane would go to work to earn money for the family. Now, she had a very modest job and made a modest income, but they had a little house, and they were making ends meet. And then one morning, on her way to work, Jane was killed in a car accident. And instantly, all of that family's income was gone. Cheryl didn't even get the basic parent Social Security benefits that Jane had paid for through her contribution to the Social Security taxes. That basic federal safety net wasn't there for Cheryl and their little baby. So for me as a lawyer, it was heartbreaking to deal with that, see that little baby, and to try to help Cheryl deal with her grief and with this financial devastation. She ended up losing the house. We couldn't keep it for her. So these are just 2 examples of the harms that same-sex couples have faced and will face if DOMA is allowed to remain the law of the land. I really hope you'll get rid of this unfair law. Thank you.